Hello and welcome to Springboard, your virtual university. My name is Albert Ocran, welcoming you on behalf of the virtual academic board chaired by Comfort. This is your most inspirational show and the point of convergence for the greatest minds. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Ratio Foundation in partnership with the Multimedia Group and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse, the Enterprise Group and UMB Bank with support from the Graphic Business and My Joy Online. So, we've had a great time in the My Top 10 series so far with some very interesting principles, attributes, lessons, commandments from first Moses K. BaIden, CEO of the Margins Group, and our communications guru, Professor Audrey Gadzekpo, and then last week with Reverend Daniel Ogbarmey Tetteh of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Today we swing to medicine or healthcare, the practice and the management. And I bring on board a man I've known for well over 30 years. My interests, ministry, which he shares, but that's where we meet. And then we diverge because I'm into things like communication and things like writing and things like broadcasting, hosting a program and doing stuff like that. He's into burns, cosmetic surgery, and things that I have absolutely no clue about. It's my joy to welcome the CEO of the Korlebu Teaching Hospital, my friend, Dr. Opoku, Ware, Ampomah. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, good to see you, Albert.
It's just a blessing to have you on the show once again.
Yes, I'm privileged to be here.
I checked my calendar. Yeah, nice to be back because I checked my calendar and you are done 2017.
Yes.
And then I think 2012. So I said it's a 5-year cycle, but we can't wait for next year. So we have to bring you back on. How is Korlebu and how is the healthcare system doing? Is this probably the toughest year, the past 12 months, the toughest year in your career as a practitioner and manager?
Yes, the last year has had this a fair bit of challenges because of obviously the COVID pandemic. But I think we are keeping this on an even keel, and we hope that hopefully with the introduction of vaccines and hopefully with people complying to the protocols, we hope to see an end. But I would say that it's too early to celebrate. We need to still keep our focus and try and all stay, within the guidelines and the protocols so that we do not have the kind of disasters that are happening in some of the countries around the world.
Give us a sense of what has triggered some of the sudden decline that some countries are experiencing that seems to be making progress. What is always the setback?
Yeah, so I think it's basically some people, once there seems to be a drop in infection rates, then people become a bit more careless because, most people are not used to wearing a face mask all the time, avoiding crowded places, all these hand washing things, So I think people are just kind of ready to let their hair down. And I think we saw a bit of that over the Christmas period. And then during the New Year, we saw an upsurge of cases, which hopefully we'll be able to get over the hump. And hopefully we hope will continue to decline. But that happens to most societies. And so we need to keep focused and be consistent and disciplined in terms of how we adhere to the protocols. That's the only way out.
Let me ask you a behind-the-scenes question about your area of specialization. I look at the fact that you are into burns, trauma, microsurgery, cosmetic surgery. It's almost like recreating a human being as a person and a person of faith. How does it feel to have in your hands the skill and by extension the power to put a human being on the outward back together again? What does it do to you when you take your instruments and give life back to a person who's lost either their facial looks and everything?
I think you are exaggerating our role. The truth is that yes, we do our bit, but then actually God does the healing. Because I believe that what it does also deepen your faith. Because if you look at even a structure like the hand, if you look at the complexity of the hand, the number of structures within the hand, the number of structures passed through the hand, and the kind of engineering, the design that goes into making the hand function optimally. I mean, if you don't believe in God, then I don't know what else I can say for you. So it's so difficult to recreate, in terms of, you can just remove something, surgery, you can remove something quickly, but when you are reconstructing a defect, sometimes it's not even one stage, it takes several stages. And so if you look at the fact that this was already created, then it gives you an insight into the awesomeness of God or the power of God. And so it only makes you humble that you have the privilege to be able to at least do some semblance of that. But you know that the original creator is the God himself. And it's also, as I said, you're always learning because, new challenges come up and new techniques are coming up, and it's God who gives us the ideas, the insights. Because sometimes, especially in our environment where you don't have as much in terms of resources, but by God's grace, you're able to get ideas and be able to use even the little that you have to be able to achieve similar results, which our colleagues across the world respect. So I think that is a privilege.
Everyone can relate to the science of what you do. It's very, very technical. You're saying that beyond the science, there's a place for inspiration in what you do, divine inspiration for what you do?
Yes, please. Because as I said, no amount of training can prepare you for some of the situations that you encounter. And at that time, the moment you have to take on the spot decisions. Sometimes we go into theater and my guys are asking me, they think, okay, Mr. Ampomah is here, so he'll figure out the way out. But sometimes I'm not sure what exactly to do. But then in the course of it, you get a wave of inspiration and you're able to, come out with some, good solution for the problem, which restores the patient. And, you know within yourself that, look, this is something that came from above. I mean, it's not, you didn't read in a book, but it's something that you had to think about on the spur of the moment. And I believe that should keep you humble to know that, look, there's a saying that the man cannot receive anything except it be given to him from above. So I think that is what I believe in, that it keeps you humble.
When a man rises to become the top person in his field and his feet are on the ground and he stays humble, it's a reminder that no matter where you are in life, keep your eyes on the Lord above and know that he's the giver of every good thing. It's Dr. Opoku Ware Ampomah. He's the CEO of the Korlebu Teaching Hospital, and many of you know him for the amazing work he's done in various fields, especially with plastic surgery, where he's been a consultant for over 2 decades, working in that field and giving opportunity, if I may use that word, to many people to go ahead and live out their lives in spite of the trauma, the burns, the accidents, the challenges that they may have faced. The reason he's here today is to help us to understand over his career what are the top principles that undergird his life. And if you are a note-taking person like me, let's find out from him. Let's start with your first 5. What would be your top 5 principles that undergird your life?
Well, I think the first one would be to find your purpose. And I think there's a lot to unpack within that. I believe that every human being was created for a purpose. And if you are a Christian or even a religious person, you know that most of our books say that even before we were born or formed, God knew us. So I believe that there's a certain nature, a certain space within which we'll function best. I like to use this analogy that if you are a fish, your best place to live in is in water. So if you're a fish and you try to live on land, you always struggle. Same way, if you're a bird and you want to live in water, you always struggle. So find your purpose. So find your purpose, that what is that core thing that you believe that you want to, what's the problem you want to solve, or what do you want to contribute to society? I believe that is very, very important. And so, and when you're able to do that, it helps to keep you focused in the sense that you will not envy other people's successes. Many people are trying to copy what other people do, but that may not necessarily be what you are suited for. So you need to find your space and work within that space. And don't follow the crowd, So when you are making your choices, make the choices that you believe would help you to achieve your purpose in life. So that, I believe, is also important, that when you have a relationship with your Creator, it helps to, help you to understand, appreciate your place in this world and what you are supposed to do or supposed to accomplish with your life.
So number one is finding purpose. And you're saying finding that purpose comes out of a relationship with the Creator.
Yeah.
What would be number two?
Number two is hard work or diligence. There's no matter what area of endeavor that you are placed in, you cannot avoid hard work. Whether you're a sports person, whether you are a medic, whether you are a journalist, whatever area, you need to put in the hard work. There are a lot of people who want to achieve success or want to get into the limelight, but then they are not ready to put in the work. But, like a discipline like surgery, for instance, or medicine, for instance, you have to put in the hours. And I can remember many long hours, spent doing training and, even on the job, mastering, the rudiments of the specialty. And even when I was abroad, sometimes I used to even drive maybe 80 miles to another city because to watch one of my senior surgeons operate on a particular case that I wanted to. Now just drive there and just assist him for free and then come and drive back.
Was it required of you, or it was just a discipline you put yourself through? It
wasn't required of me, but I felt that once I'm within that space, I wanted to make maximum use of my time there, because at the time I went to UK, I knew that I was there for a certain time period, and so I wanted to make the most of the time. So even when I finished my shift, let's say I've done my work. Actually, when I was in the UK, I found that the workload was much lighter than I had back home, because back home for a number of years I was the only resident. Now there are about 8 people doing the same job that I was doing as one person when I was training. So, but then when I went to, so I found the workload lighter, but I didn't, use the rest of the time to idle. But I just tried to occupy myself, tried to learn as much as I could within that space of time. So even when I finished doing my job out, pop into the other theaters and see what's happening, and then give my other colleagues a hand. So. And that, of course, attracted some attention. Then, of course, then people were also ready to support you to do other things. And so hard work pays. And we must also be ready to serve under leadership,
Is this a new one, or is it still tied?
It's still under hard work.
You mentioned going to serve and understudy a particular surgeon for free, driving 80 kilometers in, 80 kilometers out. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you're saying it's because you believe that hard work involves serving under somebody.
Yeah. And also, then the bit of hard work also involves being ready to apply yourself in the acquisition of knowledge. And so whether by reading, by listening to tapes or watching whatever material, that diligence to acquire knowledge, it's also very, very important, because the good book says, for lack of knowledge, my people perish, and knowledge is the currency of the now. I mean, if you take the top companies, the top tech companies, what are they selling? It's knowledge, and we in Africa, we also need to value knowledge, because we are used to priding ourselves in the fact that we have oil, we have cocoa, but these are all finite resources, and they are, if you turn the whole of Ghana into a cocoa farm, how much are you going to earn? Whereas, take a company like Apple, for instance. What are they delivering? But look at the kind of, turnover that those companies have. It's knowledge that they are selling. So I believe that we must value knowledge, and the acquisition of knowledge must be something that we must prioritize, and something that we must work hard about it and be deliberate about.
Great. So you have here 2 of your top 10 skills, purpose, and then hard work or diligence. You mentioned that there's a lot to unpack under purpose, but I think you really unpacked hard work or diligence very nicely. Let's go to your third one.
Yeah, so the third one is humility. Always keep humble and stay focused. There's a saying that pride goes before a fall. And we must be ready to serve another, ready to take correction. And sometimes as you become more senior, it becomes a bit more difficult to take correction or to take criticism. And that is something I must try to avoid. I know that sometimes when you are in the leadership space, you get a lot of unfair criticism. But I think we can judge what is fair and what is unfair. But we must always keep ourselves in that space where other people can talk to us, people can correct us, and especially our inner circle of people. There are some people who, as soon as they get a certain measure of success, they begin to cut off maybe immediate family or close friends, people who can, look them in the face and kind of tell them when they are wrong, or they even cut off some of their mentors, etc., just because they think that they've achieved some measure of success. But to be able to continue to be successful, you need to have humility. But I'm also not talking about that false sense of humility, because we have this false appreciation of humility within the Ghanaian circles, where we think that somebody who is confident is not humble. But there's a difference between confidence and cockiness, and we must. So we tend to criticize people who are confident. But somebody can be very confident but still very humble because they are ready to take correction. And then there are also people that we think are humble but actually very proud. Wow. People who have they'll do all the bowing and speak in very soft tones and but then they're actually very, very proud within themselves and they do not take to correction very kindly. So I think we must get a clear sense of what is. And so being humble doesn't mean that you are not confident in yourself. You should be confident in yourself and what you are capable of doing, but you must also be ready to esteem others above yourself and be ready to take, correction. So I think there's
can travel together.
Yes.
Confidence,
yes,
and humility.
And humility, yes.
Can travel together.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Number 4. Number 4 is about being humane. And there's also a lot to unpack under that. It involves also being tolerant, being forgiving, and then, being generous. So being generous even with staff, with people around you, even with things like giving compliments as a leader. You need to be generous with the people around you. But then also being compassionate. Sometimes I think a lot of people within the medical space are criticized a lot because of some of the experiences that some people get when they come to our healthcare facilities. And I always tell my staff that we are privileged to be among one of the few professions whose daily job touches people's lives in a very fundamental way, and that we must see it as a privilege and a sacred duty that we must discharge, with all the seriousness and all the compassion that we can master. So it's really, really critical. And you can imagine that somebody on their sick bed or nobody gets up to the hospital and goes to the hospital because today I'm feeling good, so I want to go to the hospital. Everybody comes to the hospital because they have a problem, they have a challenge. And so we must be ready to deal with people's anxieties, people's, sometimes they may come out as being aggressive, but it's because of the state of mind. When somebody is sick, they are not in their normal state of mind. And so we, as professionals, must appreciate that and help them to, help to calm nerves and to, help to treat them and restore them back to normal. And so I always tell my staff that, look, the person who walks in through the door, although you may see them as maybe somebody who is shabbily dressed, they are of value to somebody's mother, somebody's child, somebody's, so treat each person, with genuine kindness, and many times people complain about, we don't have this facility and we don't have that machine and that, but the truth is that kindness is always available. We can always be kind, we can always be humane, we can always talk to people nicely, so those are things that is very, very important that we do. And being generous is also a recognition of the fact that we are a steward of whatever resources that we had. There are many people who could have been doctors. Okay, if you're a doctor or you're a nurse or a pharmacist, whatever, doesn't mean that it's because you're the smartest person in the world, but it's because you were privileged to be born within a certain family, certain space, and you had certain opportunities that maybe others did not have. Otherwise, they would have even been better doctors, etc. So once you're in that space, you need to see it as a privilege and see yourself as a channel through which other people can be blessed. So once you see yourself as a steward of whatever resources that are available to you, it then doesn't become very difficult for you to give unto others. So being humane, I'm talking about, being kind, being tolerant, being forgiving, and also being selfless in terms of service and to others.
Great. The point you make about seeing yourself as having a privilege resonates with one of the points that Dr. Audrey Gadzekpo shared in her presentation. And she tried to remind us that whatever you have, others had a similar foundation, but you happen to be where you are.
Yeah.
And when that is in your mind, and especially you know that it is just by the grace of God, you will be more empathetic. So she used empathy, and you talked about being humane. I find a marriage between the 2 points, especially when you see that person that you think, after all, you're not a doctor, could have probably become a better doctor if they had the same opportunity that you have. I think it's quite brilliant. Thank you, sir. So 4 points that we have so far. Number 1, purpose. Number 2, hard work. 3, humility. 4, being humane. What will be the 5th one?
The 5th one is about honesty. Of late, honesty is being underrated in our country, and I think it's quite a sad situation. But I think we need to go back to that value, because honesty is basic to the development of any kind. In fact, I think one of our mutual friends, Kofi Amekuji, put on Facebook that Ghana is 70% Christian country. We are about 15% Muslim. So most of us are quite religious, okay? But if you were to open a newspaper company and you were to sell it the way they do in Switzerland, where Kofi lives, where the newspapers are put on a stand and there's nobody policing it, but then everybody comes and picks one and pays the requisite amount of money, and they do not make a loss. But if we were to replicate this in our society or even in the church, you virtually run at a loss, because that basic ethic of honesty is missing. And, no society is going to go anywhere if we do not look to restore this value. It's very, very important, because otherwise, then anybody that we put within any leadership space or put to supervise resources sees it as an opportunity to, amass or to pilfer or to steal, and that is quite worrying. And you can see that a lot of our organizations, we actually spend a lot of energy trying to, maybe block, all these attempts that people make us. And in fact, if you can see, there's a trend recently where Ghanaian employers prefer to employ foreigners, Indians, and people from the area, because they find that our own people, when they are put in position, actually help to run down the organization that is feeding them, because of this basic lack of ethic and honesty. So honesty really, really is very, very key if we are to develop and we are to move ahead. And there are many of our people who have also lost opportunities because of dishonesty. Because you can see that, for a lot of, when I went out, one of the things that I noticed was that for most of my Caucasian colleagues, the worst insult you can tell him is to tell him that he's a liar. That's about the worst insult that you can tell him, that he's a liar. But here, we lie. No, the lying is part of the normal, and so, that has become so. Now, when people even say something, you cannot hold them to their word. But elsewhere, people's word is their bond. All these. People in some of the other societies could see that you can even go to a store and pay with a check and things like that. But as the influx of people from certain parts of the world, then you realize that things started slipping. So they've had to kind of recalibrate. But it's an ethic that we all need to seriously reconsider and reaffirm, because without that, our society is not going anywhere.
I'm going to come back to you for your remaining 5 lessons. But if you just joined us, this is Springboard, a virtual university, and today we are going on with the 4th edition of our Top 10 series with Dr. Opoku Ware Ampomah, the CEO of the Korlebu Teaching Hospital. Have you had an experience with Dr. Ampomah personally? Have you had your face put back together again? Or have you had cosmetic surgery just to make you smile a bit more? Or have a different outlook from what you had previously? Have you been saved from a traumatic situation at the hands of Dr. Opoku Ware Ampomah and his team? Let's talk about it on social media. Post it on our social media stream. Let's find out what he's been doing over the past 30 years or so, especially in the 23 years that he's been saving lives in the area of plastic surgery. So if you just joined us, these are his top 5 principles. Number 1 is purpose. Number 2 is hard work or diligence. Number 3 is humility. Number 4 is being humane. And the 5th one is being honest. And he talked about Switzerland, where newspapers are on the curb. You just pay for it and pick yours and go away. The first time I went to Gambia, I was pleasantly surprised to find my host leave his iPad on his car seat and not even roll up his glasses. He said, let's go. We're going to an office for a meeting. And I said, hey, please, your iPad. He said, don't worry. It will be there. We came back and it was there, but I couldn't concentrate in the whole meeting because how dare you leave your iPad on your car seat? But it was there. He says honesty is a virtue that will help all of us as a nation. When we come back, we'll find out the next 5 attributes that Dr. Opoku Ware Ampomah treasures. But let's cross over to my colleague Nicole for the Data is King segment.
Courage. According to the American Courage Index, business owners have more courage, scoring 29.47 out of 100 than the general population, 25.28 out of 100. Courage is moving forward in spite of your fear. It is the distinguishing attribute of great leaders. In developing courage, we should take the advice of Martin Luther King Jr. when he says, if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Here are 4 courage boosters that you should have. 1. Smart goals. 2. An action plan. 3. A support network. 4. A contingency plan. Our question for today is, where is your courage quotient today and how are you going to improve it?
Don't be left out. Download the Pulse app from the App Store or Play Store to mash up all day, every day. You can also enjoy more mashup. Just buy the new Mega Bundle and get 3 gigabytes data, extra 400 megabytes for your social apps, and free MTN to MTN calls every Monday. So go ahead, feel the pulse on MTN Pulse. Just be. We're good together. Everywhere you go.
There once was a man who had it all. He had skill, he had charisma. He was loved by all, but above all, he knew the importance of helping others, lifting others up. He knew the importance of giving other people an advantage so that they too would use that advantage to help others. All you need is that advantage that sets you apart from the rest. And when you discover that advantage, life's challenges don't seem so daunting anymore. That's where we come in. Enterprise, your advantage.
UMB was established in 1972 as the premier bank for the corporate and private sector in Ghana. From our very beginning, as the only Ghanaian bank serving all categories of businesses, we set a standard for excellence and innovation. Over the past 45 years, we've built a financially healthy and strong bank, demonstrated our commitment to our customers and to growing businesses, and exhibited originality and innovation at every turn. At UMB, our focus is built around people, service, products and technology. These are the key to our present success and our future triumphs. At UMB, we're poised to make a difference not only with our customers, but also in the banking industry. We invite you to share in our future. Our future starts now with you.
Welcome back to Springboard, a virtual university, and to a conversation about my top 10 with Prof. Dr. Opoku Ware Ampomah of the Korlebu Teaching Hospital, helping us to appreciate the top 10 principles that undergird his life. And just for your notes, before we went off, he spoke about purpose, hard work, humility, being humane, and then honesty. Now, in the Data is King segment, Nicole brought us some thoughts about courage, and I could see Prof nodding his head while she was talking. So I've brought Nicole into the studio. And then also, I'm drawing Prof's attention to the word courage. And why were you nodding so much when she was talking about courage?
Because courage is one of the my top 10 principles.
Oh, so she got it's the second half. Okay, so at halftime, Nicole probably pinched one of your points to highlight. So I would reserve that since to come in your list.
Yeah.
But Nicole, from the first 5 that he shared, what strikes you the most? Hard work. Why?
Because he says that sometimes when we want something, we need to work hard to achieve it. Most of us want to get the good stuff, but we don't want to put in the work. So we need to put in the work in order to gain success.
For the benefit of those who may not have joined us in the previous editions of this series, what this series is doing is providing a mentoring platform for those starting out in their careers. It's okay to be unsure of what to do. It's okay to be confused about where you want to go with your life. I'm reading your profile here and I'm like, wow. Things about doing a leadership program at Harvard, being the first and only, or the first West African-based practitioner to obtain the Intercollegiate Fellowship of the Royal College of Surgeons in the UK with specialization in plastic surgery. I mean, I'm reading all the attributes and I'm sure a young person is saying, one day, I'll get there. This is just to provide a platform where people like you, Ampomah, can relate to that young person and say, listen, it's doable. You can become even greater if you work with these principles. So Nicole, my colleague here, comes on board just to ask you one question that a typical young person will be thinking about as they listen to you and say, yeah, you're saying this, but from my perspective, what about this? And so she will ask you one question at the end of your presentation. What will be your number 6 say?
Yeah, so my number 6 is to be grateful.
Wow.
Have an attitude of gratitude.
I like this.
In life, you find that those who practice gratitude actually do better than those who don't. What's happened is that many of us spend the time focusing on what we don't have instead of appreciating what we have. And so many times we let opportunities go begging, or we fail to make use of the resources immediately available to us because we are looking at the other side and thinking the grass is greener there and we are being dealt with a bad card and all that. But we must learn to appreciate what people do for us. Many young people now take what their parents do for them for granted, and so they feel that, well, it's their parents' responsibility to do so much for them, and they do not even say thank you or appreciate it. But we need to appreciate our parents. We need to appreciate, and if somebody even just gives you a cup of water, learn to show appreciation for it. In fact, nowadays, even the beggars have become very ungrateful in the sense that you even give somebody, a few CDs and he looks and says, oh, but big man, is this all you could give me? So it's like ingratitude has become commonplace.
Last week I saw a beggar insult and curse somebody because the person said he didn't have money that day.
Yeah.
He said you perish with your wealth. I was almost like he was entitled to the opportunity.
Exactly. So a lot of people have grown up with this entitlement mentality where they feel that the world owes them a living, or world owes them something. It's true that yes, a civil society should try to look after its young and to make opportunities available to young people. But as a young person coming up, you need to also pull yourself up by your bootstraps and to, not go out thinking that somebody owes you something, but see what you can do for yourself and be grateful for whatever support you get. Sometimes you even hear the times when I've engaged with people and they come and tell a very sad story, maybe naming certain people and kind of castigating them for not helping them. And then when you go into it, you realize that actually they received a lot of help along the line. But it's because of this attitude of ingratitude. They do not even show appreciation. They do not tell the true story about them. And so people who do that never do well. It's like in the good book, the lepers, the one who came back was, the good Lord declared him whole, as opposed to just being healed. So it's important to have this attitude of gratitude so that whoever, little somebody does for you, appreciate it. And when you do that, actually, it's a force multiplier. You find that more opportunities rather come your way and you do better in life generally. And also, it's also good for your own mental health.
Wow.
Because there are many people who feel nothing is working. They have all this pessimistic, but if you count your blessings, you realize that, look, there are some things that you have that money cannot buy. There are many rich people or people who have got money who are, have got very, bad health, or some of them are on chronic dialysis, so many other issues. And if they could exchange their money for good health, they would. So if you have good health, you can you wake up and you can breathe on your own, etc. You should appreciate it. There's this story about this old man who had COVID, and when he was given a bill of so many thousands of dollars to pay after he had been in intensive care, and he started weeping. And they asked, why is he weeping? Is it because you cannot afford the bill? And he said, no. It's like, God has been giving me oxygen all my life, and I was never grateful for it. But, these few days that I was on oxygen, see, I'm paying so much for it. So it shows me how much God has given me for free all of my life. So there's somebody who has an attitude.
Like if you have the perspective, when the perspective changes, you see, because it's just a sudden change in perspective that makes a man see how blessed he is.
Yes.
So from what you're saying, is it possible that we are all so blessed and yet so unaware sometimes?
Yes, it's very true. It's because sometimes we are focusing on what somebody else has
instead of what
that we don't, instead of what you have, instead of what is in front of you.
Right. So that would be number 6.
Number 6. Yeah.
Let's go to number 7.
Yes. So number 7, live a life of balance. Life is about balance. So you should live a balanced life. It's important to work hard, but it's also important to also play, to rest, to have time for family, for friends, and to do some community service, to engage in the church. All those are things that keep your life in balance. So life is not just a one-way street where you do only one thing and forget about other people. You need to integrate all these things into your life. So life is about balance. We need to live a balance. Make time to rest, make time for leisure, make time to reflect. Do
you get time for anything else apart from surgery?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, it's challenging, but you also need to sometimes block off time for yourself. So occasionally I'll just drive to a brewery and just, sit there and just reflect, and things like that. So you need to find ways of accommodating it within. Of course, there are a lot of demands, but you need to, because you cannot give what you don't have. So sometimes it's, you can't just keep on going out there, just doing without sitting back to reflect whether what you are doing, you're doing it going about the right way, or could there be a better way, or to also receive inspiration. So you need to make time to do that. You need to try to reflect, to think through what you're doing, and to see how you could make a better impact, with your life. So it's very important that you try to carve out that space.
Viewers and listeners, if you see Dr. Opoku and Ampomah relaxing in the Bree Gardens, please don't send him a surgery request. So that's your number 7. Yeah. Let's go to number 8.
And so number 8 is courage. We need courage to stand up for our beliefs. We need courage not to give up when the going is tough. We need courage, to develop resilience and to persevere, in the face of difficulties. What I do find about, let's say, our society is that many people know what to do. We know the right thing to do, but it's about having the courage to actually do it, especially for leaders, because you know that sometimes a decision is the right decision to take, but then it will not be a popular decision. There'll be some backlash. So sometimes we may follow what is expedient, and then once we do that, means we fail to take the necessary steps that would result in a lasting impact on society. So courage is one character that every leader must have. I've had in my career, I've had to take some very tough decisions. Some time ago, when I became a fresh head of department, I had to take a very tough disciplinary decision, because I realized that because of the gravity of what had happened, if I didn't take that, that decision or didn't kind of call out that thing, then I wouldn't have the moral courage to, correct anybody ever, So, and it was a very, very unpopular decision, but I'm glad I took it, because at the end of the day, yes, there was a backlash for it, I had to take some personal flack for it, but my department was all the better for it, because since then I've not had any issues with anybody else coming down the line, because they know that, look, this is not going to be tolerated here. And so that is the kind of courage that sometimes leaders need to have. And every day, is, we have to take some of these decisions on a daily basis. But then courage also is not always about roaring loudly or, and charging, people or kind of clamping down. But courage is also the little voice that says that, look, today I'll try again. Because many of us are in very difficult situations, working in very difficult environments. And sometimes you go home at the end of the day and you are dead, you're wondering, is it worth, doing this? But then you come back the next day and say, look, today I'll try again. That is also courage. That takes courage to do. And it's a very, very important quality.
I like that dimension, that it's not always abrasive and loud.
Yeah.
Even the quiet reflection and
yes.
making a tough decision is itself courage.
Courage, yes.
I like that soft voice of courage. That's a nice description. The soft voice of courage.
Yes.
You must write a book on that. All right, let's go to number 9.
And so number 9 is pursue excellence. Excellence is a habit. And I think one of the things that lets us down, especially in this part of the world, is that some of us don't pay much attention to detail. Now, the world has become a global village, and I think people like yourself have, talked about that, so many times on your program, so I don't need to belabor that point. But the truth is that we are now competing with the rest of the world. And so it's important that whatever product we are delivering must be top-notch. Many times, yes, we make a reasonable effort, but sometimes because we leave out certain little things, it goes against us. We get sidelined, or other people beat us to it. So it's very important that we pay attention to detail. In fact, one example is our artisans. Some of them do very good work, but you find out that everything is rough on the edges. They don't pay attention to the finish and all that. I mean, I'm sure those of you who are been building, trying to build your own house, see how many times you have to come in and correct the artisans and stuff like that. And the same thing happens in the area of academia with students, etc. Like going for an interview, take the time to dress well. Take an interest in your appearance, even when you are going to work. How you take, how you appear, how you express yourself, all those things. Well, you're writing a letter. Many people won't even take the trouble to even proofread it properly. You're sending a very important proposal. Most of the time they won't even take time to go through it and make sure that your facts are properly checked and your thing is accurate. And then they just send, and then sometimes some of those little mistakes become costly in the end.
These are principles that people who are in business, in other areas, highlight.
Yeah.
For you as a surgeon, you're talking about people learning to pay attention to details, pay attention to their dressing, pay attention to their proofreading, their fact-checking. How does that align with your work as a surgeon?
Yes, also, I'm also talking both as a surgeon and as a manager.
Okay.
So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm straddling the two spaces as you speak. But then, even in the area of surgery, or area of medical care, for instance, you must pay attention to every little detail. Like you're writing a prescription, maybe just one dot that is wrongly placed can create a problem. Because there's a difference. If you're writing milligrams or micrograms and you end up writing milligrams, it makes a huge difference between life and death for somebody.
And it can kill somebody.
Exactly. It can create a problem. So it's very, very important that, we pay attention to this, very, very meticulous in whatever we do. And also, of course, even when you're in the surgical field, I think surgeons have this, drummed into their head. If you go undergo a good training program, this will be drummed in your head long enough. You have to pay attention to every single detail. You don't just do the operation and then leave everybody. You stay from the beginning to then you see the patient before the operation, check the patient, make sure that everything's correct. In fact, there be instances in other places where the wrong part has been amputated or the wrong eye has been removed, and that kind of. These are things that happen. It's because of lack of attention to detail, and also not make sure that processes are robust. So for you, as the lead, the back stops. You can't say that it's my junior who did it. So when you have to make sure that you're checking everything. And so when you are training, you also have to make sure that you training the people under you are trained to the very highest level, high standard, so that if they say they've done something, you can be sure that it has indeed been done. So it is a lot of responsibility on you as a leader to make sure that all the details are checked out. Is it the right patient, is it the right site, and even the details of the surgery, make sure that you don't leave any needle or even exactly, even the needles and stuff, you need to make sure that you count, everything that, so that, because for you, maybe you've done 1,000 operations, just 1 in 1,000, but for that patient, that's their life. So you cannot, take chances with anybody. So you need to make sure that, for you to be a good healthcare provider, you really need to pay attention to detail. You don't just kind of just gloss over things. That one, you would be doing a lot of people a lot of harm.
Let me quote the words of Pastor Table in our last Health Workers Appreciation Day. He said, while we are all serving, whatever we do, we do it for God, but certain professions, by their very nature, their work is the work of God. It's almost like ministry, because you describe a situation where literally every single work that you do is somebody's life on the table, and one mistake could literally take away their lives. That must put a lot of pressure on every health professional, especially those of you in very sensitive areas in healthcare. I guess that you need a lot of prayer.
Oh yes, definitely. So yes, you do prayer before you start whatever, and you trust, but then you also need to be diligent and have a certain mindset. So if it is not done or it's not done correctly, so in fact, even in the area of cosmetic surgery, for instance, when we are operating, for instance, I have my own quality control. Although I'm the surgeon, yes, I've had all the training, whatever. Our team dynamic is such that even the nurse or the necessary assistant, or they can tell me that, oh doc, I think this side is not, this doesn't look, because I call them my quality control. I tell them, look, check, are you all happy that we've done the best job we can do? So if you are not too happy, we'll take it apart and do it again. Wow. No matter how tired and whether I've been on my feet for how many hours, it's that, so that kind of dynamic that allows people within the team to speak up if they see something wrong, because it's that is that person's life. So you cannot take this for granted. So, it's important that we all pay attention to detail, and if somebody sees something, they should be able to speak up and make sure that we get everything right.
And that is your point number 3 that you mentioned about humility. Yes. That even as you rise in leadership, still create access for people to correct you.
Yes, exactly.
You see, had Naaman not had that, the small girl couldn't have told him about the solution that was available with the prophet.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Right. Let's take your last point, and I'm going to bring Nicole on to ask you her question.
So my last point is that don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. Now, we live in a society where you hear a lot of people complaining about what is not there, what is lacking as well. But I believe that every individual in this country has got something to contribute to make our society better. And so, yes, you may not be the president, you may not be the member of parliament, you may not be a minister, you may not have a lot of money, but there's always something that you can do within your sphere of influence. And so I encourage everyone to try and identify that little thing that you can do and do it. So it may be volunteering, it may be educating someone, it may be praying for somebody, maybe whatever it is. Just, focus on that and make sure you do it and do it well. And I believe that if we all do that, our society will become a better place. But most of the time, people always find solace in kind of complaining about what is wrong with the society and but have you asked yourself, what can I also do? What am I contributing to the solution? So it's very, very important that, because sometimes that, focus on what we cannot do or what we lack leads to some kind of paralysis. And so we end up doing nothing. And I was, when in the healthcare space, I tell my nurses that, look, yes, we may not have the PET scan, or we may not have the whatever, but then
what can we do?
What can you do?
Let me bring Nicole on. Nicole has been listening with rough attention, and she came in with 5 of your points already done.
Okay.
And she's been listening to the remaining 5. Have you heard something in the second 5 that has probably overtaken the first point you chose?
Live a life of balance.
Live a life of balance. Yes. Let me hand it over to you to ask Dr. Ampomah one question that's on your mind.
So my question has to do with his first principle, that's purpose. As young people out there trying to live our purpose, what piece of advice would you give us on handling life challenges that we encounter in trying to fulfill our purpose?
Yes. Okay, so as the challenges, they will come. And I think you should expect that nothing good comes easily. And I think one of the reasons why challenges also come is to help us to develop capacity, so that when you are at the top, you can handle certain things. Because I tell my trainees that if when you are training, it's good for you to see your boss get into trouble, or it's good to get into trouble when you are training. so that kind of prepares you, helps you develop capacity for the future. If you have too easy a life, then really you're not really prepared for the big stage, because the big stage will come with its own attacks, its own facts. The crosswinds at the top are very, very crazy. And it's like in certain positions, because you have to deal with political pressures, traditional pressures from workers and all. So you need to have built some resilience within your system. So definitely pressures will come. But how do you, your question was, how do you handle these pressures? So first of all, I said, have faith in yourself, okay? And then focus on what focus on what you have in your hand. Everything that you find to do it diligently, okay? And then be ready to take advice. As a young person, there are always people who are ahead of you, who can advise you, who can support you. So be ready to take advice. And like I said, being humble is one of those things. Because many times, some of the troubles that we have is because of sometimes we have not followed advice. And then where, of course, there's certain difficulties that we didn't create, especially like this. If you come from a difficult family situation, for instance, you didn't create it, okay? But the truth is not to let it become something that keeps you down, but rather use it as a spare or something to goad you on to achieve more. Like there's a story about two children whose dads were drunk. Who's two siblings whose dad was a drunk. So the two of them grew up. One became a drunk. One, they did a very good life. And then one of them's reason was that because my dad was a drunk. The other reason is because my dad was a drunk. So the same situation, but depending on the perspective that you take, you can get a better outcome. So there's a saying that God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the wisdom to change the
courage
things.
to change the things I can.
Sorry, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So sometimes that's what you need to know. So it's like, I cannot change the fact that I'm a black man. I cannot change the fact that I'm Ghanaian. Those are things that are, I cannot change the family I came from. But what can I do? I can change what I become tomorrow by the seeds that I sow today. So that I tell people that don't judge today, but by what you've acquired today, but judge today by the seeds that you sown today. Because what I am today is because of the seeds I sowed yesterday. And if I stop sowing, then I'll go into decline. So like when I see people like Albert, I can use Albert as a good example. Anytime I listen to him, I get amazed at the breadth of knowledge and the depth that it brings to discussions. Because if you take Springboard, when Springboard started, you see how Springboard has evolved over the years, because you're always learning, always adding new things. So that is how life is. You don't stay static. Many people want to stay in one place and then feel that is it. So you need to always, as a young person, you need to be like a sponge. You always need to kind of be thirsty for knowledge, thirsty for experience, and expose yourself to situations where you are going to get something extra to add to yourself, and that would help you to get a better future.
10 amazing points delivered with surgical precision. If you just joined us, where have you been? This has been the voice of Dr. Opoku, Ware, Ampomah, CEO of the Korlebu Teaching Hospital. Let's have that conversation on social media, even now we go off air, because he's giving us 10 points, and I want to know which one is your favorite. I love the favorites part, because many times people don't just select their favorite, but they tell us the reason why they are selecting it. So 1 is purpose, 2, hard work, 3, humility, 4, being humane, 5, honesty, 6, gratitude or be grateful, 7, a balanced life, 8, courage, 9, excellence, and 10. That one I can't summarize it. He says, don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. A big thank you to you, Dr. Ware. Thanks for being with us.
It's a privilege.
And warm regards to the family. Thanks, Nicole, for your contribution. And a big thank you to MTN Pulse, UMB Bank, the Enterprise Group, the Graphic Communications Group. And what can I say about the multimedia group for putting together Springboard, your virtual university? A big thank you to our team here at Springboard, led by Comfort. And for me, that last quote that you gave about the Serenity Prayer, over 30 years ago, when we were doing wall hangings and selling them for a living, that was the one quotation that I sold the most wall hangings from. So you've taken me back about 35 years, and I am grateful that you bring perspective to this discussion. For you out there, next week is another huge one with the James Ebo White, my own uncle Ebo. He will be here sharing his top 10 lessons, and get your family, friends, and loved ones to join this discussion. But till then, my name is Albert Ocran saying God bless you, and God bless you.